I stood in the gleaming lobby of Maxwell Enterprises, mop in hand, watching the executives hurry past in their designer suits. None of them gave me a second glance. To them, I was just another member of the cleaning staff, invisible in my gray uniform. If they only knew that tomorrow, I would be sitting in their boardroom, not as a janitor, but as their new CEO. My name is Marcus Chen, and I've spent the last 5 years maintaining this elaborate deception. Not just here at Maxwell Enterprises, but with my entire family. They still think I'm the family failure, the one who wasted his computer science degree to become a janitor. What they don't know is that I'm the founder and CEO of Quantum Solutions, a tech company worth over $50 million. The irony wasn't lost on me as I watched my cousin David stroke through the lobby, his Italian leather shoes clicking against the marble floor. He was Maxwell Enterprises' rising star, their youngest VP at 32. Every family gathering, he made sure everyone knew about his latest promotion, his new sports car, his luxury apartment. I just nod and smile, pretending to be impressed while he patronizingly offered to put in a good word for me with HR. "Hey, janitor." David's voice cut through my thoughts. "The men's room on the 4th floor needs attention." Chop chop. I gripped my mop tighter, swallowing my pride. "Right away, sir." As I pushed my cart toward the elevator, I could hear him chuckling with his colleagues. "That's my cousin, you know. Always told him to apply himself, but some people just don't have what it takes." If he only knew that tomorrow, Quantum Solutions would be completing its takeover of Maxwell Enterprises. After months of quiet stock acquisition and strategic planning, we finally secured enough shares to gain controlling interest. The board meeting was scheduled for 9 a.m. sharp. But first, I had to survive tonight's family reunion. The annual Morrison family gathering was always an exercise in humility. Held at my Aunt Patricia's sprawling mansion in the suburbs, it was less a family celebration and more a competition of achievements. As I parked my deliberately modest Honda Civic in the driveway, I could already see the lineup of luxury vehicles: David's Porsche, my sister Olivia's Mercedes, Uncle Robert's Tesla. I straightened my intentionally cheap suit and walked inside, bracing myself for the usual barrage of condescension and helpful career advice. "Marcus." Aunt Patricia's voice carried across the marble foyer. "We were just talking about career growth. Come join us, maybe you can pick up some tips." The living room was arranged like a corporate hierarchy, the successful family members occupying the premium spots on the plush sofas, while the less accomplished were relegated to the dining chairs brought in as overflow seating. I took my usual place on the periphery next to my second cousin who worked as a high school teacher, another family disappointment. "So Marcus," David leaned forward, swirling his expensive scotch, still cleaning up at Maxwell. "You know, if you just finished that coding bootcamp I recommended, you might have made something of yourself by now." I thought about the 3 patents in my name, the revolutionary software platform I'd developed, the team of over 200 brilliant engineers who reported to me at Quantum. "The janitorial work pays the bills," I said mildly. My sister Olivia, an investment banker, shook her head. "I just don't understand how you can be satisfied with that life. Remember when we were kids? You were always so good with computers. What happened?" What happened was that I discovered a fundamental flaw in cybersecurity systems while still in college. Instead of following the family's prescribed path of climbing corporate ladders, I'd spent 2 years in my apartment developing a solution. They thought I was depressed, failing at life. In reality, I was building the foundation of what would become Quantum Solutions. "Not everyone is cut out for success," Uncle Robert declared, straightening his Italian silk tie. "Some people just lack ambition." I hid my smile behind my water glass. Uncle Robert was Maxwell Enterprises' CFO, and tomorrow he'd be one of the first to learn about the takeover. I wondered if he'd still think I lacked ambition then. "At least he's honest work," my mother chimed in, always trying to find the silver lining. "And he keeps his apartment clean." The room erupted in laughter at what had become a running family joke. Yes, of course the janitor keeps his place clean. They'd never visited my real home, a penthouse overlooking the city. The small apartment they knew about was just for show, part of the elaborate facade I'd maintained while building my company. Speaking of Maxwell, David set down his scotch, his expression turning serious. "Did you hear about tomorrow's board meeting? Rumor has it some tech company is trying to take over. Quantum something." I kept my face carefully neutral. "Oh, Nothing to worry about, Uncle Robert waved his hand dismissively. These young tech startups, they think they can just walk in and take over established companies. We'll shut it down before it gets any traction. If he only knew that Quantum Solutions had been methodically acquiring Maxwell shares through various shell companies for the past year. By tomorrow morning, we would own 51% of the company. Actually, I said, unable to resist, I heard Quantum Solutions is doing quite well. Their cybersecurity platform is revolutionary. David snorted. What would you know about it? You're a janitor. I read the tech blogs during my breaks, I shrugged, thinking about the Forbes cover story about me that would be released tomorrow. They'd been sitting on it for weeks, waiting for the takeover to be announced. The conversation moved on to more important matters. David's new yacht, Olivia's promotion, Uncle Robert's country club membership. I sat quietly, observing my family in their bubble of self-importance, knowing it would all change tomorrow. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah, my COO. Everything's set for tomorrow. Board members notified. Press release ready. You sure about this? I looked around the room at my family, still laughing about my poor life choices. Yes, I was sure. After 5 years of hiding in plain sight, it was time to show them exactly who I was. The next morning, I arrived at Maxwell Enterprises at my usual time, 6 a.m. But today, instead of pushing my cleaning cart, I carried a sleek briefcase containing the takeover documents. I'd already changed into a custom-tailored Tom Ford suit in my private office on the top floor of the building next door, where Quantum Solutions was headquartered. Sarah met me in the lobby, her heels clicking against the marble floor. Ready for this? I adjusted my tie, thinking about last night's family reunion. More than ready. The Maxwell Enterprises boardroom occupied the entire top floor, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the city. By 8:45 a.m., the room was filling with board members, executives, and legal teams. I watched through the security feed as David arrived, radiating confidence, followed by Uncle Robert, who was frantically checking his phone. Mr. Chen, my assistant Thomas, appeared at my shoulder. They're all here. I nodded, straightening my cuffs. Time to make an entrance. At precisely 9 a.m., I walked into the boardroom. The reaction was immediate. David, halfway through some joke about the takeover attempt, froze mid-sentence. Uncle Robert's coffee cup clattered against its saucer. Marcus, David's voice cracked. What are you doing here? The cleaning staff isn't allowed in board meetings. I walked calmly to the head of the table, setting down my briefcase. Good morning, everyone. I'm Marcus Chen, CEO of Quantum Solutions. The silence was absolute. Uncle Robert's face had turned an interesting shade of gray. David's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. This is ridiculous, David finally sputtered. You're a janitor. You clean toilets. I smiled, nodding to Sarah, who began distributing documents. Actually, I was never a janitor. That was just a cover while we acquired controlling interest in Maxwell Enterprises. As of this morning, Quantum Solutions owns 51% of your company's shares. Uncle Robert lunged for the documents, his hands shaking as he flipped through the pages. This can't be legal. You can't be. The CEO of a $50 million tech company? I finished for him. The same company that holds 3 major cybersecurity patents. The one that's been featured in Tech Weekly as one of the most innovative startups of the decade. I pulled out the morning's copy of Forbes, my face on the cover. That Quantum Solutions? David had gone pale, no doubt remembering every condescending comment, every joke at my expense. But your apartment, your car. We're props, I said simply, just like the janitor's uniform. Tell me, cousin, did you ever wonder why a janitor had full access to every floor of the building? Why security never questioned my presence in executive areas after hours? The board members were shifting uncomfortably in their seats. Many of them had seen me cleaning their offices, never bothering to look beyond the gray uniform. As of now, I continued, I'm assuming control of Maxwell Enterprises. There will be some changes in leadership. I looked directly at Uncle Robert, starting with the executive team. Uncle Robert shot to his feet. You can't do this, I'm calling your mother. I couldn't help but laugh. Go ahead. She's probably still congratulating herself on having one successful child, Olivia. Wait until she sees the Forbes article. Just then, as if on cue, phones around the room started buzzing. The story had broken. I watched as board members and executives pulled out their phones, their expressions changing as they read about the brilliant young CEO who had built a tech empire while working undercover as a janitor. David was still shaking his head in disbelief. 5 years? You spent 5 years pretending to be a janitor just for this moment? No, I corrected him. I spent 5 years building a successful company while you and the rest of the family were too busy looking down on me to notice. The janitor thing? That was just to ensure no one interfered while we acquired shares in Maxwell Enterprises. My phone buzzed. A text from Olivia. You just saw Forbes. Call me. Followed immediately by one from my mother. Marcus, what is going on? Your Aunt Patricia is having a fit. I set my phone aside and addressed the room. Now, shall we discuss the future of Maxwell Enterprises? I have some ideas about modernizing your cybersecurity infrastructure. The next few hours were a blur of signatures, legal discussions, and shocked revelations. By lunch, word had spread throughout the building. The cleaning staff, my former colleagues who had always treated me with kindness, were among the first to congratulate me. Many of them knew something was different about me, they just hadn't known what. Around 2 p.m., my family started arriving at the office, demanding explanations. Aunt Patricia nearly fainted when security escorted her to my new office, the CEO's suite with its view of the city skyline. But you're a janitor, she kept repeating, staring at my nameplate. Was a janitor, I corrected her. Now I'm your boss. Well, technically, I'm David's boss's boss's boss. My mother arrived last, clutching the Forbes magazine. She looked like she'd been crying. Why didn't you tell us? I leaned back in my chair, thinking about all the family dinners where they'd mocked my poor life choices, all the reunions where they treated me like a cautionary tale. Would you have believed me? I asked quietly, or would you have tried to control it like everything else? Tell me how to run my company? Push me to give jobs to family members? She had no answer for that. Over the next few weeks, the story of the undercover CEO went viral. Business magazines hailed it as a brilliant strategic move, gaining inside access to a target company while keeping the competition completely unaware. My family, meanwhile, had to adjust to a new reality. David was demoted to middle management, where he finally had to prove his actual worth without family connections. Uncle Robert took early retirement rather than work under his janitor nephew. Aunt Patricia stopped hosting family reunions, claiming she needed time to process everything. But the biggest change was in how they looked at me. Gone were the condescending smiles, the patronizing advice, the jokes about my career choices. Now they looked at me with a mixture of respect, fear, and regret. 1 month after the takeover, I hosted a company-wide meeting to announce some changes. As I stood at the podium, looking out over the assembled employees, I spotted my old cleaning cart tucked away in a corner of the lobby. I smiled, remembering all the nights I pushed it through these halls, quietly building my empire while everyone else was too busy looking down their noses to notice. Success, I've learned, doesn't always wear a suit. Sometimes it pushes a mop, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. And sometimes the best revenge isn't about proving others wrong, it's about proving yourself right. My phone buzzed with another text from Olivia. Family dinner at Mom's this Sunday. Please come, we have a lot to make up for. I typed a quick reply. I'll be there, but this time, I'm wearing a suit.
Please, don't throw them away. Let me have them. Sarah rushed forward, her boots squishing through layers of garbage. She was several buildings away from the popular Mango Cafe, where they sold pastries, coffee, and other sweet edibles. Sarah hung around the garbage dump every morning because the Mango Cafe workers always showed up at this time to dump used aluminum cans and other leftovers. The aluminum cans were important to her because she could sell them to recycling companies to earn a percentage. Don't come close, the Mango Cafe worker snapped, pressing a palm over his nose. You stink. Sarah stopped approaching him and sighed. Of course she stank. She had been searching the garbage dump for an hour, looking for anything she could sell. All she wanted was the garbage bag in the worker's hand. It didn't matter that he was rude. Being upset wouldn't pay the bills. I'll drop the bag here, the worker said. When I leave, you can come get it. Thank you, sir. He slid her another glance before hurrying back towards the Mango Cafe. And please get a bath. You stink more than a garbage truck in the middle of summer. Sarah waited until he slipped through the back door of the cafe before grabbing the garbage bag. There was some leftover food in there, and she dumped it in the garbage before inspecting the aluminum cans. She picked up the bag and started for the recycling company. It was a reasonable distance, and her stomach was violently rumbling, but she consoled herself with the thought that she would make some money from the sale and could buy something to eat. If anyone wondered why an older woman was dragging a garbage bag behind her on an early Monday morning, nobody asked, and it was good that they minded their business. This wasn't her proudest moment, but she had to make ends meet, or else she would starve to death. Half an hour later, she arrived at the recycling center, her body drenched with sweat and her legs heavy. "How can I help you, ma'am?" the staff at the desk asked, squishing his nose at her. At least he was polite enough not to mention it, unlike the worker back at the cafe. Sarah knew she needed a bath badly, but she couldn't head home for a quick one before coming here. "I want to sell this," she showed him the bag. "They're all in good condition." The man reached for the bag and examined the cans. "They're not all in good condition, ma'am," he deadpanned, causing her heart to skip painfully. Contrary to how stressful getting these cans was, it didn't pay very much. But when the staff complained that the cans weren't in good condition, the already meager pay was slashed by half. "Check them carefully," Sarah pleaded. "I didn't pick them from the garbage, they're fresh." "Then why do you smell like a dumpster?" He frowned at her. "The cans stink. We're only paying $2 for this. You either take it or get out of here." "Can you do 5? With 5, she could get a decent meal too." The man remained adamant. "I'll take it." He dumped the garbage bag on the floor and withdrew the cash from his drawer. Sarah took it and left the office, her stomach pulsing painfully. Hunger was a constant companion, but because she hadn't eaten in a full day, it had grown to an uncomfortable level. She stopped by an eatery and grabbed a snack before walking the rest of the distance home. Sarah lived in a dilapidated area downtown, a location where the poorest of the poor lived, and it lacked all the basic amenities of a regular apartment. Inside her house, Sarah sat on the couch and devoured her burger, aware that this might be the only food she ate until tomorrow. She finished with a cup of water and then hurried into the bathroom to bathe, after which she changed into her regular skirt and a frayed blouse before retiring to the living room to lie down before her cleaning shift in the evening. Her gaze landed on the picture frame on the wall opposite her, and a sad smile crossed her face at the memories it brought. In the frame, she was 23 years old, holding an award for the best teacher at Salem School. Those were good times. Sometimes it was hard to reconcile who she was now with the lady perpetually stuck in that picture frame. Then, life was good. She was pursuing her passion for teaching and being actively rewarded for it. She never knew that life was about to throw a curveball in her direction. As hard as she tried to shake the memories before they pulled her further into the waves of depression, she couldn't. Her thoughts took her back to when she was young and free. Growing up, she had always had a passion for teaching. As an elementary school student, she would gather her classmates together and read books to them, teaching them new words and helping them study. By the time she got into high school, she was the best student in every class. She signed up as a tutor to any student who had problems with lessons. She won several awards for being an excellent tutor, and every person she taught ended up passing the class. She applied to study education in college, and while there, she also left her mark by organizing study sessions and helping out the other students. When she graduated as the overall best student, her parents wanted her to apply to become a professor. But Sarah wanted to go back to the basics. She realized in all her years of tutoring that students had faulty foundations from elementary school, which transcended into adulthood. She wanted to become an elementary teacher and help young children build stronger foundations for a better life. It was a burning passion that even her strict parents were unable to obstruct. A year after she graduated from the university with flying colors, she got employed as a teacher in Salem at 23, beginning what would become a decades-long profession. Those children were the loves of her life, and Sarah devoted everything to them. Maybe someone should have taught her that she needed a life beyond teaching, but no one did. Her parents were disappointed that she chose to teach children at an elementary school and get paid peanuts when she could literally get a job in the city as a professor and earn much more. However, every time the kids walked into her classroom with broad smiles on their faces, she felt joy. Every time their parents called to thank her for helping their child through a complex subject, she felt joy. She soon became the most popular teacher in the school. Now that she was 53 and at the bottom of the rung, she saw life from a different perspective. She was alone because she could not separate her passion from her personal life, and now that she knew better, it was too late to go back and rectify it. When she was a pretty young woman, she used to be chased around the block by men who wanted her. At 28, she met Andrew. She loved Andrew as much as he loved her, but he wanted more attention than what she gave him. Andrew would complain that she was spending too much time with the kids and acted weirdly towards them. At the time, it was bothersome to explain her passion to him, and they eventually separated because he could not deal with her. Sarah smiled, still staring at the picture on the wall. She wondered if any of those kids remembered her now. After spending all her life and time helping them grow, did they sometimes think about Mrs. Archer? She doubted any of them would even remember she still existed. Her kids at the time were 6 to 11 years old, which meant they were now adults in their late 30s or early 40s, probably with kids of their own. Sarah laughed as she remembered their cute little faces that brought her so much joy. But as cute and lovely as they were, she had difficult kids too, especially little Joseph, who would always disrupt her class and cause the other children tears. He would steal their lunches and pull on girls' hair. At 10 years old, Joseph had been suspended multiple times from school, but Sarah took an immediate liking to him. He hated her because he didn't understand why she would love him despite all his troubles. Sarah realized later that all the other teachers ignored him, yet she showered him with love. Since he was constantly failing in class, she approached his parents with ideas for after-school tutoring, but they refused. His father was an alcoholic, and his mother ran a fashion business that took her away from home for weeks on end. Joseph was practically left on his own most of the time. When she found out about this, Sarah started to spend more time with Joseph in school before he eventually went home to be alone. At first, he barked against it and would run away after school, yet she continued to extend grace to him. Soon, he began to wait for her in the playground where she would read to him and play until he left. It took time, especially since it was during the period she was dating Andrew, yet she knew Joseph needed her. One day, Joseph stopped coming to school. She went to his house, and no one was there. The school principal told her that Joseph's father ran away with him, and it broke her heart. She never saw him again, but whenever she thought about him, her heart would say a little prayer. No kid should live such a difficult life, she thought. Sarah sat up on the couch as the clock chimed 5. Before she dragged her gaze away from the picture, she thought about how the Salem school discarded her after serving for over 25 years. They called her into the office one day and politely told her it was time to stop teaching. She was 50 years old and still felt young at heart, but the board refused. They wanted someone new like Sarah was when she started teaching at 23. It was after her forced resignation that she realized what she had done with her life. Her parents were dead, and since she was an only child, she had no siblings. Because of teaching, she had no husband and no partner. Salem paid too little to have any savings, so suddenly she hit rock bottom, scared and heartbroken by the new turn her life was about to take. Sarah moved out of her state and traveled back to her hometown, where no one knew her anymore. It was here she mourned her old life, regretting that she let it consume her so profoundly that when it was taken away, she had nothing left. Hunger hit, and she took to the street. She, a former teacher and overall best graduate of her time, resorted to cleaning homes and picking out aluminum cans. As Sarah left the house on her way to her cleaning job, she asked herself what her life would have become if she had chosen to be a professor. It was a more secure job, and resignation or retirement came with lots of benefits. Did she regret being an elementary teacher? No, but she regretted how she did it. Now, everyone had their lives, but she was stuck in a rut, back to point zero. So, the agenda of today's kickoff meeting is to prepare for the launch of our eatery tomorrow. Joseph said, his gaze roaming the faces of each staff member in the conference room. He was the chief executive officer and the creative mind behind Mango Cafe. They had several branches scattered across the country and were set to launch a new site tomorrow. The world is watching and waiting, he continued. For 7 years, we have operated Mango Cafe and have given people a taste of expensive dining for an affordable price. Now that we're dabbling into something different by starting an eatery for fine dining, we must ensure to keep up the pace and aim to do even better. Our launch tomorrow will be covered in the news, so we must work together to make sure that everything goes right. Brad, he slid his gaze over to the manager of his corporation. Brad Minner, the floor is yours. As Brad took over the meeting, Joseph's attention was diverted, like it always was. Sometimes it's a miracle that he was so wealthy and successful. There were so many traits he exhibited that could have prevented him from being anyone influential. For instance, he was never able to concentrate in school because his attention span was so short. He was already thinking out of the classroom before the teacher even said a word. This caused severe restlessness such that he became a terror to the teachers and other students. He failed all his class tests and never did his assignments because he couldn't concentrate on them, and his parents didn't care enough to help him do it. His life started on the path of change. When a young teacher was employed by his school, she gave him the love his parents never did and set him straight. Joseph smiled when he remembered her. At first, he hated her passionately because she saw something in him that he didn't see in himself. As a 10-year-old, he already thought his life was over. His peers were doing way better, but he could hardly spell his name. But this teacher refused to let him wallow in self-destruction. After the close of school, he used to stay in the playground long after everyone had left because there was no one home. This teacher would stay with him until he was ready to go. Not only that, she started teaching him numbers and the alphabet without judging him. In 6 months, he could read a book. Almost a year into meeting her, he was already recording a C on his tests as opposed to an F. It hurt when one day his father took him out of the state without giving him an opportunity to say goodbye to this excellent teacher. He would never forget her. "What do you think, sir?" Joseph suddenly felt 6 pairs of curious eyes on him, and he turned to Brad. "What was your question?" The best part of being the boss was never having to apologize to anyone whenever you were caught zoning out in meetings. Brad smiled. "Are you satisfied with all the details we have outlined?" He wasn't listening, but he trusted his team to handle tomorrow's launch like pros. "I got distracted," he said, "but I believe you know what will impress me. I cannot wait to ace tomorrow's launch with you all by my side." As the members of the board applauded, Joseph left the conference room and headed back to his office. The next day arrived, and before Joseph knew it, he was standing in front of the ceiling-length mirror in his luxurious room, trying on different suits designed by one of the country's finest designers, Valentino Russo, who was also his personal stylist. "I think this is a wonderful fit," Valentino said in his strong Italian accent, "but something is missing." Joseph rolled his eyes. This was the 6th suit he was trying on, and Valentino wasn't impressed with any of them yet. "Valentino, this looks amazing." Joseph studied his reflection, admiring the way the cloth clung to his body. At 41, he looked amazing, thanks to all the hours he spent in the gym each day. It was one of the things that kept him grounded. "Something is missing." Valentino grabbed another 6-piece suit from the rack. "Try this one." Joseph groaned, and Valentino smiled. "I'm sorry, sir, but we have to get it right. You're launching your establishment today and have to look your best. Plus, when you climb on that stage, people are going to be seeing you live." "We want to make a good impression," he said. "There are way too many wealthy people who don't dress well. I won't allow you to be part of them." "Fine." Joseph put the suit on and looked at his reflection again. This time, a gasp escaped his parted lips. This is the perfect fit. The soft mustard color set his skin tone off perfectly. Valentino was standing wide-eyed behind him, also impressed by the outfit, which was a relief. Before either of them could say anything, the door opened and Brad walked in wearing a black suit. He stopped when he saw Joseph and smiled widely. "You look good, sir," he said. "That color is amazing on you." "Thank you, Brad." Joseph nodded at his manager. What's the update? Is everything set? The launch begins in 3 hours. Yes, sir. I was heading to the location but decided to stop by to let you know that everything is set. People are already arriving, and the blue carpet rolls out in 1 hour. Wonderful, Joseph responded. You go ahead. I'll meet you there when I'm done. Okay, Brad headed out, and Joseph turned his attention back to Valentino. Shall we? Sarah was excited as she headed to the launch of the new eatery uptown. In her years of sourcing aluminum cans, she realized that she got neater ones when there was an event, as they had just been freshly used and were in better condition. It had been a tough couple of days for her, and food was sparse. She hoped that with the cans she would collect, she could sell them for good money and have a decent meal. As she neared the new mango eatery, she saw the caliber of people posing on the carpet and wondered how it felt to be rich. These people were arriving in luxurious cars, wearing frothy, expensive dresses, with handsome and beautiful companions. It was evident that they never had to starve or worry about their next meal like she did. She had never been rich and never had a car, but in the past few years she had grown accustomed to being poor. She wouldn't say life had been unfair to her because she got here as a result of the decisions she had made. She walked past the people on the blue carpet, trying to shrink herself as much as possible because she was too ashamed. She was wearing frayed clothes that had been in her closet for years, and the skirt had obviously been stitched way too many times. Rich people never liked to associate with someone like her. They would always look down their noses and say cruel things. So she tried to avoid them as much as she could. When she was sure that no one was watching, Sarah slipped through the revolving doors and into the restaurant. Inside, it wasn't as busy as it was outside, but the few people interacting with each other didn't pay her any attention. She took out the garbage bags stuffed in her pocket and started to score for empty cans. Around her, she could hear people laughing and having fun, but she concentrated on her task and quickly started filling up the bag. Despite feeling self-conscious, Sarah was excited about how much she would make from reselling these cans. It should be enough to take care of her breakfast and dinner today, and maybe something light for tomorrow. It wasn't until next week that she'd be paid her salary from the cleaning job. The trash bag was almost filled when she heard someone growl behind her. Who the heck is this? Sarah froze. Although she had her back turned to the voice, she knew the harsh question was directed at her. I'm talking to you. Who the heck are you? Shockily, Sarah turned, meeting the gaze of a tall, bulky man in an expensive black suit. He was staring disapprovingly at her, and she swallowed. Good morning, sir, Sarah greeted in a pleading tone. I'm just here to pick up these empty cans. She gestured to the garbage bag. Her answer seemed to annoy him further, and he took a step towards her. Who let you in? When she didn't respond quickly, he scowled. Who let you in? No one. I came in through there, she pointed to the front door. By now, she could feel a bunch of judgmental eyes on her, and she wished she could disappear. You could be arrested for trespassing. Do you know that? I'm sorry, please, Sarah begged. I just wanted some of these cans. I'm not here to cause any trouble. I've told security to watch out for people like you, he growled. You ruin things. Look at the caliber of people around. They'll feel so uncomfortable with you here. Get out of here now. Sarah started to walk towards the front door, dragging the bag along. The man snatched the bag from her. This doesn't belong to you. Please, tears stung her eyes. I plan to resell them to get money to feed myself today. You have no use for them. They're empty cans. You came in here to pick them up without being invited. That's stealing. Before she could respond, the man grabbed her arm and dragged her toward the hallway at the back of the restaurant. And you can't go through the front door. No one else should see you. They approached the back door, and the man violently pushed her into the backyard. Sarah staggered and found her balance before she fell. Please, she ran to him before he could slam the door shut. I'm not asking for money or food. I only want those cans. You don't need them. If I see you around this property again, I promise I'll call the police, he yelled. Go find your cans elsewhere. He banged the door shut, leaving her empty and heartbroken. Tears fell down her face as she walked back towards home. She was accustomed to being treated like trash, But this one hurt to the bone. The garbage bag was already filled. All the man had to do was let her take it. It wasn't like they needed it for anything. They would trash it at the end of the event. Passersby stared at her funnily as she hurried down the road towards home, and Sarah wiped her tears to lessen the attention. There was no need to cry. All she had to do was move forward. She would probably return later in the evening to check the trash for those cans, but they would no longer be in topmost quality by then. It didn't matter. She would manage with whatever she was given for them. Waiting until evening meant she wouldn't have breakfast, and as she walked, her stomach grumbled with hunger. She started to hum one of her favorite songs to get her mind off it. She would survive, no matter how hard life seemed at the moment. "We did well," Joseph raged. All the dignitaries that attended the opening ceremony were proud and spoke only wonderful things about the food. "Why am I being cancelled on social media?" He pointed furious gazes at his staff. "Can you all stop looking at me and tell me what is going on?" For his mental health, Joseph hardly used social media, so he didn't find out quickly that he was being criticized across all platforms. Shortly after his launch, he was home, popping champagne with friends in celebration of a wonderful opening ceremony when he started receiving calls about a certain video online. Getting through the night was tough, and he was tempted to check the internet and see what the ruckus was about, but he managed not to, choosing to wait until he was at the office to require a valid explanation from his staff. He had put a lot of money and effort into ensuring the launch was successful, and this buzz annoyed him greatly. He noticed the other board members throwing covert glances at Brad, which incensed him further. "Brad," Joseph swiveled his chair in Brad's direction, "you're the general manager. You're in charge of everything down to the minute detail. Explain this. I need you to get up and tell me what happened right now," Joseph demanded, directing a glare at Anna, the young intern who handled the business's social media pages. "What are people saying about me, and what's this video they keep talking about? I'm not paying you all to sit on your asses. I need information." When he slammed his fist on the table, Anna flinched and jumped to her feet. "I'm just going to play the video," she said in a shaky voice. Joseph watched her scurry to the head of the conference table, where she connected her computer to the overhead projector. Moments later, a recording began to play. The incident happened inside the Erie, and the first person Joseph saw was Brad, yelling at an old lady whose face was obscured by the camera. She was holding a trash bag, cowering under Brad's harsh presence. "Anna, give it more volume, please," Joseph ordered. Anna nodded and hit a key on her laptop. Now he could hear the voices of Brad and the old lady. "I've told security to watch out for people like you," Brad growled at the woman in the video. "You ruin things. Look at the caliber of people around. They'll feel so uncomfortable with you here. Get out of here now." The elderly woman started to leave, but Brad snatched her garbage bag and yelled, "This doesn't belong to you." Joseph's blood boiled as the lady begged, but Brad refused her. To worsen the incident, he grabbed the old lady by her frail arm and threw her out through the back door. The video ended, plunging the conference room into an uncomfortable silence as Anna hurried back to her seat. For several minutes after the video ended, Joseph remained speechless. He wanted to wring Brad's neck and punish him, but he chose to compose himself and stay calm. Brad had been a staff member of the company for more than 5 years, and Joseph didn't believe in throwing out staff so flimsily after they had served for a long time. Yet he was deeply disappointed in his manager. "Brad," he called, and the manager shot to his feet, shame and remorse in his eyes. "Sir, how could you do that to an old lady?" Joseph asked. "She didn't come there begging for crumbs of food. She only wanted those empty cans." "What did you do with those cans after the event?" Brad sniffed. "I guess they were thrown away. I don't know." "It would have meant the world to that woman," Joseph said. "She probably planned to resell them. You grew up with nothing, Brad. Remember that." "I'm so sorry, sir," Brad begged. "I was just desperate for everything to go well. I was on edge and worried that if people saw her." "I don't care," Joseph snapped. "I don't care about anyone who gets offended because of her. That's not the type of people we want to serve anyway," Joseph said. Brad nodded, his eyes full of remorse. Excuse me, sir, Jermaine, the public relations specialist, called for Joseph's attention. Since this is already getting out of hand, I suggest we tackle it immediately before your brand is permanently ruined. This video is going viral across all social media platforms, and people are leaving all sorts of comments. It may be Brad in the video, but most of the attacks are personal and directed at you. Joseph ran a hand through his hair. What do you advise? We find the old lady and compensate her. We will anonymously tip off the paparazzi beforehand so they'll be there to film it as we do. Isn't that an obvious tactic? A board member asked. Jermaine nodded. Yes, but it works. Trust me, all we have to do is find the woman. She doesn't look like she has a smartphone, Anna said, which means she won't have social media. How do we find her? Don't worry about that, Joseph told them before sliding his gaze toward Brad again. Since this is all Brad's fault, let him find her. Brad's eyes widened for a moment before he vigorously nodded. I'll find her. I promise I'll make this right. You had better. Joseph rushed to his feet and left the room, still seething with annoyance. He couldn't see the woman's face in the video, but he felt her pain and heartbreak. The cans meant so much to her, and Brad had cruelly taken them away. He wished he had been there to stop it, and he promised himself he would do whatever it took to compensate the woman for how rudely she was treated. It was 9 o'clock in the morning, and Sarah was exhausted with her monotonous life. Her cleaning shift wasn't until the evening, and ever since the incident with the man at the Mango restaurant's opening ceremony, she had stopped going there to collect cans. The man's behavior hurt her so much that it also grazed her pride, and she had been unable to pick herself up since then. This meant her mornings were now free, and she had enough time to wallow in self-pity until it was time to clean her clients' homes in the evenings. The only joy Sarah felt right now was that her salary would be paid in a few days, and she would finally be able to have a nice meal. She was still thinking about this when someone knocked on her door. Sarah got up from the couch, her eyes crinkling curiously as she walked to the door. She had no friends in town, which meant no one ever visited her. Are you in there, Miss Archer? Miss Archer? The person knew her name. She jerked the door open, and a loud gasp fell out of her mouth when she saw who was standing on her crumbling doorstep. It was the mean guy from the restaurant who had pushed her out so rudely. Scared and worried, Sarah tried to shut the door in his face, but he anticipated the move and quickly slid his leg through the door, stopping it from closing. The door banged against his foot, and he howled in pain. What do you want? Sarah yelled, noticing the sleek black car behind him. Why are you here? I didn't do anything to you. Good morning, ma'am, he said softly, his voice devoid of harshness. You didn't do anything. I'm not here to harm you. Why? Why are you here? Sarah wouldn't let his soft tone fool her. And how did you find me? Please leave before I scream. You don't have to do that, ma'am. Please, he said. Can I come in? No, Sarah frowned. Why would I let you in? What do you want? My name is Brad Menor. I am. Sarah scoffed. I don't care who you are, mister. I want you to leave. Firstly, apologize for what you did. I don't care about anyone who gets offended because of her. That's not the type of people we want to serve anyway, Joseph said. Brad nodded, his eyes full of remorse. Excuse me, sir, Jermaine, the public relations specialist, called for Joseph's attention. Since this is already getting out of hand, I suggest we tackle it immediately before your brand is permanently ruined. This video is going viral across all social media platforms, and people are leaving all sorts of comments. It may be Brad in the video, but most of the attacks are personal and directed at you. Joseph ran a hand through his hair. What do you advise? We find the old lady and compensate her. We will anonymously tip off the paparazzi beforehand so they'll be there to film it as we do. Isn't that an obvious tactic? A board member asked. Jermaine nodded. Yes, but it works. Trust me. All we have to do is find the woman. She doesn't look like she has a smartphone, Anna said, which means she won't have social media. How do we find her? Don't worry about that, Joseph told them before sliding his gaze toward Brad again. Since this is all Brad's fault, let him find her. Brad's eyes widened for a moment before he vigorously nodded. I'll find her. I promise I'll make this right. You had better. Joseph rushed to his feet and left the room, still seething with annoyance. He couldn't see the woman's face in the video, but he felt her pain and heartbreak. The cans meant so much to her, and Brad had cruelly taken them away. He wished he had been there to stop it, and he promised himself he would do whatever it took to compensate the woman for how rudely she was treated. It was 9 o'clock in the morning, and Sarah was exhausted with her monotonous life. Her cleaning shift wasn't until the evening, and ever since the incident with the man at the Mango restaurant's opening ceremony, she had stopped going there to collect cans. The man's behavior hurt her so much that it also grazed her pride, and she had been unable to pick herself up since then. This meant her mornings were now free, and she had enough time to wallow in self-pity until it was time to clean her clients' homes in the evenings. The only joy Sarah felt right now was that her salary would be paid in a few days, and she would finally be able to have a nice meal. She was still thinking about this when someone knocked on her door. Sarah got up from the couch, her eyes crinkling curiously as she walked to the door. She had no friends in town, which meant no one ever visited her. "Are you in there, Miss Archer? Miss Archer?" The person knew her name. She jerked the door open, and a loud gasp fell out of her mouth when she saw who was standing on her crumbling doorstep. It was the mean guy from the restaurant who had pushed her out so rudely. Scared and worried, Sarah tried to shut the door in his face, but he anticipated the move and quickly slid his leg through the door, stopping it from closing. The door banged against his foot, and he howled in pain. "What do you want?" Sarah yelled, noticing the sleek black car behind him. "Why are you here? I didn't do anything to you." "Good morning, ma'am," he said softly, his voice devoid of harshness. "You didn't do anything. I'm not here to harm you." "Why? Why are you here?" Sarah wouldn't let his soft tone fool her. "And how did you find me?" "Please leave before I scream." "You don't have to do that, ma'am." "Please," he said. "Can I come in?" "No," Sarah frowned. "Why would I let you in? What do you want?" "My name is Brad Menor. I am." Sarah scoffed. "I don't care who you are, mister. I want you to leave. Firstly, apologize for what you did." "I want to apologize for how I acted the other day," Brad said. Sarah narrowed her eyes, disbelieving that this man had come all the way into the gritty part of town just to offer an apology. "Why?" she asked. "It was mean and uncalled for. I had no right to treat you that way, and I am sorry. Please forgive me." "You're forgiven," Sarah said, trying to push the door closed again, but his foot wouldn't budge. "Please go away. I've forgiven you." "Unfortunately, I cannot leave just yet," he continued. "Someone recorded the incident and posted it online, and it's gone viral." "What does that mean?" Sarah asked, her confusion mounting. "It means that a lot of people saw it and started criticizing the business, especially our CEO, Mr. Ambrose. He's a good man, and he doesn't deserve any of the heat he's getting." "So, what has that got to do with me?" she asked, her skepticism clear. "He wants to compensate you," Brad said. "He requested that I find and bring you to the headquarters today." Sarah's blood froze, and a loud ringing filled her ears. "I said our CEO, Mr. Ambrose, would like to compensate you for the trauma you were caused, and he requested that I bring you to there." "I heard you," Sarah interrupted. She knew the idea of being compensated was just a ploy to get back into the public's good graces, and not a genuine show of care for her. But did that really matter since she would be getting compensated? This could mean cash, food items, or other freebies. Who cared if it was a media stunt as long as she got something out of it? She wasn't in any position to be prideful and picky right now. "Would you please come with me, Miss Archer?" Brad pleaded. "We would really love to make it up to you." Sarah decided quickly and nodded. "Yes, I will come with you. We have anonymously tipped the paparazzi that CEO Joseph Ambrose will heavily compensate the old lady in the video today at the Mango headquarters, and several reporters are on their way here as we speak," Jermaine said. "They'll take pictures of the process and post it online to dilute all the hate we've been receiving." "It's already working," Anna said excitedly, tilting her laptop screen in Joseph's direction. "People are already praising you for taking the step to find this woman. They think it's kind and generous." She grinned. "Although some people think it's a media stunt." "It doesn't matter," Jermaine replied. "As long as there's a buzz around it, we're fine." He turned to Joseph and asked, "How do you intend to compensate her?" "The world will see it, so we have to make it good." Joseph sighed heavily while leaning against his chair. He didn't like to do good for public view, which was why he preferred to work silently with charities and benevolent organizations. But this was a problem he could not ignore and had to address publicly because Brad had chosen to be a mean boy. The door opened, and Brad walked in looking content and relieved. "She's here, sir," he said. He had already sent a message last night that he found her and would be bringing her over this morning. Joseph rushed to his feet, eager to get this over and done with. "I hope this teaches you a lesson to never be mean to anyone again in your life, Brad," he said to his manager, who lowered his head, his face full of remorse. "I regret this deeply, sir." "Where is she?" "In the reception." Joseph walked out of the office, his team following closely as he took the stairs and headed to the reception area. The reception was a homely dome made of glass, stylishly shaped like a mango. It was an architectural wonder that many admired whenever they visited the headquarters. As he approached the entry, he glimpsed the old lady sitting on one of the reception chairs, a lost look on her face. A rush of memories bombarded him, and he froze, his heart slamming violently in his ribcage. It had been years since they last saw each other, and although she was older and tired-looking, Joseph recognized the woman on the other side of the glass. Her face was a constant in his memory, and now she was right there, only a few feet away. "Is everything all right, sir?" Brad asked. Joseph looked up at him. "This woman," he gestured to the glass. "What's her name?" Sarah Archer." His heart almost stopped at the confirmation of what he already knew. Miss Sarah Archer, the one teacher who had set the course of his life for greatness. Without her, he would still be the unruly kid who never realized his potential. "Excuse me, sir," Jermaine approached them. "I just got a tip that the paparazzi are here. We might want to hurry this up." Joseph blinked, shaking his head. He wouldn't reunite with his teacher this way, not with cameras flashing at them and the world watching. This moment meant more to him than anything because he had waited for this moment for years. "I want them gone," he said to Jermaine, who blanched. "What? Are you deaf?" he barked, and Jermaine flinched before walking away. Joseph glanced at Miss Archer one last time before heading back in the direction of his office. "Ensure she gets home safe," he said to Brad. "What?" Brad ran after him. "Aren't we compensating her anymore? She would be so disappointed. I already told her we would." "Brad, do not question me," Joseph snapped. "You're already on thin ice with me." He walked into his office and slammed the door shut. As soon as he was alone, Joseph broke into a sob. It wasn't tears of sadness or hurt. It was relief. Miss Archer, all his core memories from childhood were about her. She changed his life, and even as a little boy of 10 years, he knew it. Growing up, he never really had love from either parent. Mom was too fixated on work, and Dad was an alcoholic. They let him run wild and do whatever he wanted, which to him at the time was amazing, until it wasn't. At 10 years old, he could hardly spell his name. He kept failing all his tests and became the runt of his class. The only way to get attention was to be loud and horrible to his classmates and teachers. Everyone hated him, and no teacher could stand him, until Miss Archer. She never yelled or blamed him for his failures. Instead, she spoke faith and strength into him. He was 41 years old now, but he would never forget the words she said to him one day on the playground. "I believe in you. You can do this. There's some hidden strength in you, and I can feel it. You have everything it takes to be the best." Miss Archer looked at Joseph, smiling. But then her smile suddenly vanished, and her face turned serious. "Now go out there and prove it." He never forgot those words. Even when his dad woke up one morning and decided they were leaving town for good after an altercation with Joseph's mother, he clung to those words. Whenever he was stuck in a difficult situation, he would remember those words and draw strength from within. She was right. He always had the strength to overcome whatever he set his mind to. It was with this strength that he finished high school and went to college. And it was with that same strength that he dropped out to work at a restaurant when he couldn't pay for his tuition. It was with that same strength that he started Mango 5 years ago. He returned to Salem looking for her, but they said she had resigned and had no idea where she was. It broke his heart, and he'd been on the lookout for her ever since. What could have happened to her? She always looked young and beautiful, but now it was hard to see the beauty. Yes, she was now advanced in age, but that didn't explain the stress on her face. He could see hardship, and he hated it. Compensation wouldn't cut it, especially not in front of the cameras. He owed his comfortable life and success to her, and he would ensure she got the best from him. She would never have to pick aluminum cans off the floor ever again. Sarah woke up the following day feeling more than a little depressed. Yesterday started really well, but then it went downhill really quickly. The lying, cheating Brad Mena promised her compensation at the headquarters, and she had gone there with high hopes, thinking she would get something for her trouble. Only for her to be driven back home without a single penny. At least Brad had the grace to look embarrassed as he gave her a stale story about the CEO having to leave urgently. It confused her because why did he have to lie about what happened? He didn't even have to bother coming all the way to apologize when he would back it up with a blatant lie. There was a soft knock at the door, and Sarah frowned. At first, she thought it was her imagination, but then she heard it again. "I swear, if it's Brad, I will knock him out," she snarled, yanking the door open with a frown on her face. However, the person at the door wasn't Brad. She didn't know who he was, but there was a distinguished air about him that calmed her. Behind him on her porch was a sleek black car manned by a bulky security guard. Sarah returned her attention to the man standing before her, meeting his gaze. Something about him touched a deep part of her that she had buried for years. The part of her that was a teacher, not this 50-something-year-old woman who struggled to make ends meet. "Who are you?" she asked softly. Miss Archer, his dark eyes turned glassy with tears, and she inhaled sharply, unsure of what to do. "It's me," he began, and she racked through years of memories, trying to remember where she had run into this young man who was getting emotional at her door. "Joseph," he said, "Joseph Ambrose." Her world stopped, then tilted on its axis. "What?" she gasped, finally clicking that this was Joseph, the 10-year-old student who had disappeared from her life so suddenly after she had grown accustomed to him. She instinctively touched his face in disbelief, her heart expanding in her chest. "Joseph," she whispered, pulling him into a tight embrace, tears falling down her face in torrents. Her world had been gloomy for a long time, but this was the best thing to happen to her since Joseph disappeared years ago. She had never stopped thinking about him. He left so suddenly when he was beginning to gain his ground, and it hurt her deeply. "Joseph," she pulled back to stare into his face, her gaze roaming his features. He had grown older now, but on closer inspection, she could see the faint resemblance to the little boy she knew 30 years ago. "How did you find me? Please, come inside and tell me everything." Sarah pulled him into the house, and Joseph's heart broke further. Her home was completely impoverished. He stayed silent and let her gently push him onto a rickety couch. She looked excited to see him, and Joseph was glad that she had kept him in her heart, the same way he did her. "How did you find me?" she asked, her voice trembling with emotion. "How did you know it was me?" Joseph could see the questions rattling in her head, and he was prepared to calmly answer them, to explain how his life went from being a respected teacher to this. "It was purely coincidental," Joseph told her. "My manager was rude to you on the day of my restaurant launch, and the video went viral." Sarah's eyes widened. "The Mango franchise belongs to you." "Yes, ma'am," Joseph chuckled at the awe in her gaze. "Can you believe that?" She touched his face with motherly affection. "Of course, I believe it. I always knew you would be someone great and successful. Didn't I always tell you?" He nodded, remembering all those beautiful words she spoke into his life. "I saw you yesterday," he continued, "at the headquarters, but the paparazzi were present, and I didn't want to turn our reunion into a public spectacle." "I thought I'd been scammed," she laughed, her voice tinged with disbelief. "Plus, I've always known Mango. I go to the Mango Cafe in town on Sundays to search for used cans." "Who knew you owned it?" She ruffled Joseph's hair, and he felt like a kid instead of a 41-year-old man. Tell me, how was life for you when you left? Joseph sighed deeply. It was hard. My father took me away to punish my mother because she never had time to look after either of us, he explained. He thought my mother would come to her senses and chase after us, but she didn't. My father realized he didn't want to be saddled with the responsibility of a child and put me in the foster care system, claiming mental illness. Oh my goodness, Mrs. Sarah grabbed Joseph's hands. I'm so sorry. I wasn't close to him, so I didn't really miss him, Joseph said. I missed you though. His eyes shone with unshed tears. You were the only person who ever showed me love, and I kept trying to come back to see you, but no one let me because I was too young to make that decision. Her hold tightened on his hands, giving Joseph strength. But I held on to everything you told me, he continued. It was easy to fall off because no one really cared, but I didn't want to disappoint you. So I paid attention in class and did everything right. It was tough, but like you said, I always found strength. What about your parents? She asked. Have you reconciled with them? Nah, he shook his head. I never saw my dad again. I reached out to my mom when I was 15, and she said she didn't want to hear from me anymore. That is so cruel, Sarah gasped and threw him another hug. Joseph leaned into the embrace for a few seconds until she pulled away. What about you? He asked. I went to Salem a few years ago looking for you, and they said you resigned. Resigned? They fired me, Sarah laughed bitterly. I was 50 years old and had nothing. I gave all my life to teaching, and it felt like everything I did was a waste. Although I don't regret it, she smiled, I wish I poured more into myself. Listen, I know nothing I ever do will make up for all the lost time, but it's been 40 years in my life, and no one ever did more for me than you, Joseph said, tears falling down her face. You set my course, Miss Archer, and everything I am today, I owe it to you. Tears fell down her face, but Joseph continued, feeling close to tears himself. It's been 30 years, but it feels like yesterday. I love you, Miss Archer, for being the best teacher for children like me who have no one and who have looked down on themselves because they have nobody to uplift them. They all need someone like you. I'm glad I encountered you, or I have been in the street like my father. She broke into a sob, and Joseph held her for a long time as they cried together. He had always envisioned what their meeting would be like, and the reality was way better than any imagination. Slowly he pulled away, took a deep breath, and looked at Sarah with his big brown eyes. Your days of picking up used cans are over, Miss Archer, Joseph said softly. You changed my life, and so I will do everything in my power to change yours. Joseph stood up and smiled at Sarah. She was confused. A few moments later, Joseph was holding her hand and leading her to the car. Where are we going? Sarah asked, smiling at Joseph. You've been tight-lipped about this, and I'm going to remain tight-lipped until we're there, he replied. You're not going to ruin the surprise. Oh, Joseph, you're scaring me, she groaned good-naturedly and slumped in the passenger seat. As much as he wanted to keep a straight face, Joseph couldn't. He was excited for what he was about to do, and he knew Miss Archer would be too. They were in the highbrow part of town where the wealthy citizens lived. His home was just around the corner, but he wasn't going that way. He had somewhere else in mind. A comfortable silence ensued between them for a moment until Joseph pulled the vehicle in front of a compact house and switched off the engine. What a beautiful house, Sarah said, looking out the window. Is this your house? Joseph didn't say anything, he only smiled. Come on. He hopped out of the car and helped her with the door. There was a frown on her face as they walked down the beautiful flower path to the front door. Her frown deepened when he withdrew a bunch of keys from his pocket and unlocked the front door. Young man, if you don't tell me what is going on, I will. Joseph laughed heartily and ushered her into the house before handing her the keys. It's your house. Her mouth fell open. What do you mean, it's my house? Paid in full for you, Joseph nodded, his smile wide. You're now officially a homeowner. You can move out from that old apartment. Sarah gasped and ran into the house, laughter bubbling from her lips. Joseph walked behind her as she admired everything in the house, giggling all the way from the living room into the kitchen. She raced into the ensuite room, and Joseph hid his smile because she was in for another surprise. There, Sarah gasped at the wonderfully designed room. She jumped on the bed and groaned at the softness before checking out the bathroom. Lastly, she threw the closet open and froze. It was filled to the brim with expensive clothes, shoes, and bags, all befitting for her age. "I'm sure they're all your size, but I hope they're to your taste," Joseph said with a grin. "Oh my goodness," Sarah cried out, her hands covering her mouth in disbelief. "I can't accept this, Joseph. This is all too much." Joseph giggled softly and replied, "Well, I don't think you have a choice here, Miss Archer." Sarah sank onto the couch, trying to steady herself. She closed her eyes for a moment, tears streaming down her face. Joseph stood there, smiling through tears of his own. After composing herself, Sarah got up and faced Joseph. "Thank you so much, Joseph. This is beyond my dreams. Thank you." "You deserve it," he said sincerely. "You deserve it all. Everything in here is mine," she whispered, her eyes still shining with disbelief. "Yes," Joseph nodded, gently twining his hands with hers. She shook her head, overcome with emotion. "But why all this?" "It's too much, Joseph. I might have known you for only a short period of time, but it was impactful." Joseph held her gaze, his expression serious. "Sarah, I've always admired you. You changed my life. You set my course. This is my way of showing you how much that means to me." Sarah threw her arms around him again, and Joseph smiled in contentment. The warm afternoon sunlight streamed through the tall windows in Joseph's office, casting elongated shadows on the shiny oak floor. Brad lingered nervously at the door, clutching a folder brimming with notes and sketches. Joseph, seated behind his expansive desk, waved him in. "Come in, Brad. Have a seat," Joseph invited, his voice tinged with curiosity. "Let's discuss this project you've been working on." Brad settled into a chair opposite Joseph, his hands trembling slightly as he spread the documents on the desk. "Thanks, Joseph. I also want to apologize again for what happened the other day." Joseph looked up from the papers and met Brad's gaze. He let out a sigh and replied calmly, "It's okay, Brad. Maybe if you hadn't done what you did that day, I wouldn't have found her either. However, it's important to treat everyone respectfully, especially under pressure." A small smile crept across Joseph's face, easing the tension between them. Brad nodded, grateful for Joseph's understanding, and dived into his presentation. "It's about her, actually. When I reflected on her situation after our last conversation, I realized I was negligent. Let's get that out of the way now, shall we?" Joseph smiled and nodded, encouraging Brad to continue. "I started thinking about her age. She's over 50, seemingly without any major prospects. Now, that's not necessarily a good thing for her," Brad explained, his expression growing concerned but attentive. "Interesting." Joseph leaned forward. "Tell me more about your idea." Brad cleared his throat, his confidence growing as he explained, "I suggest we start a private school. But not just any school. This one would focus on personalized education, where teachers like Miss Archer can share their wisdom and give special attention to students who thrive outside traditional classroom settings." Joseph's eyebrows shot up in surprise. "A school? That's quite a shift from managing restaurants and cafes." "Yes, it's a big change," Brad acknowledged. "But think about it, Joseph. We know how much Miss Archer influenced your life. Parents are searching for schools where teachers genuinely care about their students' futures. We could build a school that embodies that ideal. Plus, this would give Miss Archer a chance to teach again, which she needs. You've helped her solve her financial issues, but she's not being challenged. She's built for more than just getting by. She's meant to inspire." Joseph laughed lightly, trying to change the subject as Brad hinted at personal matters. "Hold on, Brad. You're veering off into my personal life here. Let's keep this about the school." Joseph tapped a pen against his lips, thinking deeply. Brad seized the moment, opening his folder wider to show Joseph a more detailed plan. "We'll start small, something intimate to maintain the personalized feel. Then we'll bring together a team of educators who really buy into our vision. We'll keep the classes small and ensure the learning environment is engaging," Brad outlined, enthusiasm clear in his voice. Intrigued, Joseph asked softly, "And Miss Archer? She could be our pioneer, our guiding star," Brad suggested, his eyes bright with the idea. "We could even name the school after her." Joseph's smile widened. "Sarah's Place. I like that. It sounds welcoming, full of promise." Brad nodded enthusiastically. "Exactly. And we don't stop there. This could even expand into a franchise, which you already know how to manage." Finishing his pitch, Brad held his folder confidently. Joseph stood up, pausing momentarily before extending his hand for a shake. In that moment, he was certain he had made the right choice in hiring Brad. "All right, Brad, let's do this. You lead it," Joseph said with a smile filled with pride. Over the next few weeks, Brad would dive into the details and scout potential locations. He had already arranged meetings with architects, educators, and legal experts to ensure everything was perfectly aligned for the launch of Sarah's Place. 6 months after their initial conversation, Brad was back in Joseph's office, but this time for a very different reason. The day had come to officially open Sarah's Place Private School. The building buzzed with excitement, adorned with colorful banners and balloons as community members, teachers, and future students gathered. Brad, now confident in his role, took the stage with a broad smile. "Today marks a new beginning," he started, scanning the crowd of eager faces. "We often say that a good education can change a person, but a good teacher can change everything. Here at Sarah's Place, we are committed to proving just that." The audience erupted in applause, resonating with the promise of this new educational endeavor. Brad continued, his voice carrying conviction. "To lead our school, we needed someone exceptional. A person with not only knowledge and experience, but also heart and dedication." The room quieted in anticipation. "It is my greatest honor to introduce the principal of Sarah's Place. Please join me in welcoming Sarah Archer." At the mention of her name, Sarah, seated in the front row, felt a mix of surprise and overwhelming joy. She stood slowly, her hands trembling slightly, not from nerves, but from the realization of a dream she thought was beyond her reach. As she made her way to the stage, the applause grew louder with each step. Brad handed her a small bouquet of flowers and whispered, "Thank you, Sarah, for inspiring this. We couldn't have done it without you." Sarah took the microphone, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "Thank you, Brad, and thank you, Joseph, for this incredible opportunity. To everyone here, I promise to dedicate every day to making Sarah's Place a home of learning, kindness, and inspiration. Together, we will change lives." Joseph, watching from the sidelines, felt a profound sense of fulfillment. This was not just a return of a favor, it was the creation of a legacy. As the crowd cheered for Sarah, Joseph realized that finally, his life had meaning beyond his business success. The ceremony concluded with tours of the school, laughter, and conversations filled with hope and aspirations. As Joseph and Sarah stood side by side, observing families exploring the new classrooms, they shared a quiet moment of reflection. The buzz of excited voices discussing the future echoed around them, but in their shared silence, there was a profound understanding. Words were unnecessary. Their mutual smiles conveyed it all. They had come full circle. In that moment, both felt a deep sense of accomplishment and peace, knowing they had not only changed each other's lives, but were now set to change the lives of many others. 6 months after the grand opening of Sarah's Place, the school had become a vibrant hub of learning and community engagement. Sarah's passion for teaching seemed to rejuvenate with every passing day, fueled by the bright-eyed students who hung on her every word. It was as if she had stepped back in time to her early teaching days, filled with vigor and purpose. Each weekend, Joseph made it a point to visit Sarah over cups of coffee in her cozy living room adorned with student artwork and educational books. He listened intently to her stories from the past week. Sarah spoke with infectious enthusiasm about her students' progress, their small victories in learning, and the innovative teaching methods she was implementing. "What a joy it was, Joseph, to see them finally grasp fractions," Sarah would exclaim, or "Emily wrote her first poem, and it was about her cat. Can you believe it?" Joseph found himself engrossed in these tales, his admiration for Sarah growing with each visit. This ritual slowly wove a deep familial bond between them. Joseph began to see Sarah not just as a mentor or a colleague but as a maternal figure in his life, a source of wisdom and warmth. Sarah, too, felt a maternal affection toward Joseph, proud of the man who had helped her change her life and treated her with such respect and care. One peaceful Sunday, as they sat watching the autumn leaves flutter down in the gentle breeze outside her window, Sarah turned to Joseph and said softly, "You know, Joseph, this school, it's more than just a job for me. It's given me a new lease on life." Joseph smiled, taking her hand in his, "And for me, it's given me a family." "I can't thank you enough for everything, Sarah." They both looked out the window, comfortable in their silence, feeling the peace that had settled over their lives. In the years to come, their bond would remain steadfast, a testament to the power and enduring spirit of true companionship.